Hey guys, welcome back to Concordia Jedi for another Q&A. We got a lot of questions here, so we'll just dive right in. From Zack Attack. With Akira Toriyama recently passing away, I would like to know, what are some of your favorite Dragon Ball moments and why? So Akira Toriyama passing away really hit hard because I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, the original Dragon Ball as well, a little bit of that, some of GT, a lot of Dragon Ball stuff. And one of my big regrets was not getting into his works outside of Dragon Ball. But I guess there's always time to go back and look at some of those. But some of my favorite Dragon Ball moments, one of them is actually from the Dragon Ball Z Kai version of Goku's Nightmare, when he's fighting Frieza on Namek, and Frieza is drowning him under the water, and he's seeing visions of all of his friends being killed, and then he just lets loose his anger against Frieza, and I think does the Kaioken times 20 against Frieza with the Kamehameha. That's one of my favorite moments. Vegeta's death on Namek is also a favorite. There's honestly too many to list off. Dragon Ball is filled with so many amazing moments, but those are two that really stick out to me as some of my favorites. And he asks, what's the last film you saw, and what did you think of it? Did you think it was good, or did you think it was bad? If you have seen it before, do you think you can watch it countless times and still enjoy it? The last film that I watched, I believe, was Oppenheimer, at least for new films, and absolutely loved it. I think definitely earned the Oscars. I'm not sure if that's one that I could, rewatch over and over again. I have to be in a mood to watch that. I've watched it twice, once in the theater and then once when I was sick, decided to stream it. I'd say it's not one I would, watch over and over and over. I have to be in the mood for it, but it is a phenomenal film. Thank you for your question. From Fall Song. Have you read the Thrawn books? If so, what did you think of them? I have not read the Thrawn books. I read, I think, one of the Timothy Zahn books when I was in elementary school, and that was a long time ago. I don't remember much of it. As for the new books, I don't think I've read them. I'm kind of out of touch with the new literature of Star Wars. I mainly keep on top of the TV shows and the movies. But from what I've heard, they're really good, and I'll have to take a look at them if I get the chance. From Ryan Simons or Simmons 99. If you personally were in the Star Wars universe, what color would your lightsaber be? What type of lightsaber would you have, and what style would you use? Single blade, green lightsaber, probably Form 5. I'm not a very acrobatic person, so probably I'm a bigger guy, tall. I think that would probably fit my fighting style well. From Tim McClaymont. Who's your favorite philosopher, and or what is your favorite historical or political quote, and or what is your favorite period of history? I'm not a huge philosophy guy, and I think a lot of times people, put a lot of credit into people that are considered philosophers or labeled philosophers. I will say the closest I get to idolizing someone who I consider a philosopher is J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of Lord of the Rings, although I don't even think he'd consider himself a philosopher. But one of my favorite quotes, at least from his works, and it's been a while since I've read the book, so I'm not sure if it's just a quote from the movies or if it was also in the book, but it's Gandalf's quote, "All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us." That quote sticks with me all these years. We don't know how much time we have. All we have to decide in our lives is what to do with that time that we have and make the most of it. Thank you for your question. From Aegon the Unworthy 4. If Cassius, Takai, Sarah, and Corbin were ordered by the Republic during the Clone Wars to commit genocide against the populace of a planet that supports the Separatists, which I think the Republic would be willing to do during the Clone Wars, given the direction Palpatine was taking the Republic in to make it into the Empire, how would the four of them respond to that order? Would they desert the Republic? And how would Dravok respond if other Jedi agreed to take part in a genocide endorsed by the Republic? Dravok would be furious, but he wouldn't be surprised, as he felt this was already the direction the Jedi were heading in. Cassius, Takai, and Sarah would absolutely be against it. And I think Corbin would be too, though Corbin would have a few more hang-ups about it. I don't think they would necessarily leave the Republic altogether, but they would absolutely, I think being Jedi, they would have some authority to say, no, we're not going to lead our troops on a mission like this. That's genocide and it's wrong. And they would be more than willing to step up and take responsibility for denying that. They absolutely would not take part in a genocide. Thank you for your question. From Deb II, do you think the sequels would have been a bit more interesting if the First Order was more like the Fel Empire from Legacy? It's hard for me to say, because speaking as someone who enjoys the sequel trilogy and someone who has not really read much of the expanded universe content revolving around the Fel Empire, I can't really give a straight answer to that. I have a friend who might be able to fill me in more down the line, and maybe I could come up with an answer to that. But as it is right now, I don't know enough about the Fel Empire to give a direct answer to that. Thank you for your question, though. From Leo Romer, if Liara met Anakin's Force ghost, how would it play out? Do you think any further interactions between them will eventually lead Liara to face her demons and not let the past define her? So part of me wants to say Liara would be very standoffish against seeing Anakin's Force ghost. Understandably so. This is the guy who kidnapped her and tortured her for years and turned her into his puppet. But another part of me thinks that Liara, after the events of Jedi Redeemed, even though she's still struggling with her own inner demons after everything she went through, she'd want not to hold animosity towards Anakin, as that would just add to everything she's dealing with on the inside. And she would see letting go of her anger, maybe not necessarily forgiving Anakin, but letting go of her anger towards Vader as a step forward towards her own self-healing. Thank you for your question. From Clone Commander Caleb, when you write your novels, what do you usually do to create your outlines? That's a great question. When I'm writing the Cassius books, for example, what I do is, first, I make sure I have the general layout of how the story is going to go. And what I do is I separate the book into parts in this outline. And I list major elements first, like the major events that are going to happen. Let's say Jedi Apprentice, first major event. Cassius meets Sarah in Drawlig. Cassius meets Sarah in the dueling grounds after dark and has a duel with her. They meet Dravok, and so on and so forth. I list off the major events that happen, and then under each of those events, I have little bullet points of minor events that connect into everything. And once I have all of that done, it's just a matter of connecting the dots together through the writing. That's usually how I do my outlines for the stories. Thank you for your question. From Crusader 2112. What's your favorite thing about the Star Wars Expanded Universe? Definitely Kyle Katarn. Kyle Katarn is not only my favorite character in the Expanded Universe, he's one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, period. Absolutely. Number one favorite thing about the Expanded Universe is Kyle Katarn. Thank you for your question. From Diamond 360. What color lanterns from DC would each of the primary characters have, i.e. Cassius, Corbin, Sarah, Takai, Dravok, Liara, Gaidam? I think this was asked before, and I think I'd give the same answer I gave there. I don't really know enough about DC and Green Lantern and the Lantern Corps to give a straight answer to that, so I'll leave that up to the listeners to decide. If they're DC fans, they can make their judgments based on the characters. Number 2. In a hypothetical scenario where you were given a season of Tales of the Jedi, since now we have both Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Emperor shorts to write about whichever faction and characters that you would want to explore more about, which characters would you choose to explore and develop further? I think for Tales of the Jedi, I would absolutely want to do something on Baylan Skoll. Show his history as a Jedi. That's probably the top one I would want to do. And then outside of that, maybe do something following Luke after the events of Return of the Jedi, because I don't think they all should be set, before the events of the original trilogy. For me, I think following Luke like a couple episodes following Luke as he tries to start the Jedi Order again after Return of the Jedi. I think that would be a great thing to do. Number 3, what would you say is your favorite era/time period within Star Wars? And that's difficult to say because I love so many elements from all of the different eras of Star Wars. But if I had to choose just because it's the one I grew up with, I'd say the era of the prequels, with the Republic and the Confederacy and the rise of the Empire. That's probably my favorite era just because that's the one that I grew up experiencing and the one I have the deepest emotional connection to from a nostalgic point of view. And 4, what do you think would have happened in a scenario in which Cassis and Corbin had been given each other's master? Corbin training under Master Takai and Cassis training under Master Terran. Does Corbin still fall to the dark side? Would Cassis turn dark while in Corbin's position? It's tough to say, but I feel like there's a good chance that things would have played out similarly with Cassius falling to the dark side, as if Cassis even said himself, if someone as strong and powerful as Corbin was struggling with how the war was taking a toll on him, then Cassius wondered if he would make it out of the war, the same person. And I feel that Cassius doesn't necessarily have the same strong will, at least before the events of the later books, that Corbin has. So I definitely feel like it's a possibility he could have fallen. And Corbin, on the other hand, training under Takai, I don't think would have had any of those same issues that he had under Master Terran. Thank you for your questions. From Task Force Mando, 3 questions for you. If Cassius was made into a movie or TV series, who would you pick to be at each character and why? If it's an animated series, there's so many talented voice actors, it would be hard to list off who I want. Although I would say I would probably want either Rob Paulsen or Tom Kenny as the voice of Pip. Like, that would be top notch for me. That's the only one I know absolutely for sure I would want as one of the voice actors. Number 2, which of your characters turned out better than you thought, and which one turned out worse? I don't know if there's any character I can think of that I thought, oh, this character turned out bad. I'm pretty proud of all my characters. I'd say the closest is probably Tabu from Dawn of War. Mainly because even though he was like a kind of surprise villain, it did seem kind of predictable in hindsight that he was going to show up again towards the end of the book. And overall just wasn't a very intimidating villain. A character who turned out better than I thought he would was Tosa. I loved how his story arc went. 3, I'm also writing my own Star Wars OC story and was wondering if I could add Cassius and Master Takai as an honorable mention. Absolutely, go for it. From Dark Vortex, I got a few questions. What made you want to write about Cassius? I said before I came up with the idea around the age of 15 because I wanted to tell a story about a Jedi in the era of the prequels into the era of the Empire. So that was just kind of what made me want to write about it. If you could change one thing about Cassius' story, what would it be and why? I think I would probably change some stuff in Dawn of War. That's still, in my opinion as the writer, probably the weakest of the series. So I would probably do some editing there, kind of change things around. Have you ever thought about writing a story about a Sith? If so, what kind of stories were you thinking? Haven't thought about doing something on the Sith yet, but maybe in the future. We'll see. I've been recording my own fan story, and I'm wondering, do you practice reading your story before recording it, or do you just jump straight into it? Depends on the day. Sometimes I'm kind of in a rush, and I just need to get the chapter recorded. Sometimes, if I know it's something that's going to be a longer chapter, and I want to make sure that I'm not having a ton of slip-ups in the recording process, then I go in, just, read a little bit before, and then go in and record. What is your favorite time period in Star Wars? Again, prequels. What would be your favorite color? Lightsaber color, form, and hilt. I said this again, so single blade, lightsaber, green, form 5. What are your biggest issues when creating these stories? Definitely time and writer's block, because I also work a full-time job. YouTube's not my career. So it can be difficult to find time to sit down and write the stories out. And also just, finding sometimes the motivation to sit down and And right, writer's block can hit hard in these situations. Are there any aspects of the Sith that you find interesting? If so, what are they and why? There's a lot of aspects of the Sith I find interesting. One of them being that while the Jedi strive to maintain balance in the Force, the Sith they try to control the Force itself. They bend the Force to their will, and they have a determination and drive that is, in its own twisted way, kind of admirable. Thank you for your questions. Our last question is from Evan Miltuno, or ML2NO. And he says, do you feel like you can be proud of the person you grew to be? Oh, that's getting deep. I'm not always proud of who I am. There's obviously things about myself that, I wish I could change, or things that I'm looking to change. I'm a human being. I make mistakes. Sometimes I do things that I look back on and I'm like, I'm not proud of that. I shouldn't have done that. I've taken things for granted. And, just like any human, I'm flawed. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. No one is. But I look at myself compared to how I was just a couple of years ago. And I look at myself, and rather than thinking, am I proud of who I am now? I look back and I think, what things did I overcome that have made me a better person than I was a couple of years ago? And then even more than that, I look back at events in my life that I felt the lowest at. And then I look back to where I am now, and I have to count my blessings. I look at the friends that I've made, the family members that I have, and I look at everything all together and I go, I'm doing all right. So as it is right now, I am proud of the person that I am and the person that I've turned out to be. And I think everyone should do that. Everyone needs to look at themselves from time to time and say to themselves, I'm better than I was at this point in time. I've made improvements. I'm working each day to become a better me. That's what we need to do. Not strive for perfection, but strive to be a little better each day. Treat people with kindness, treat people the way you'd want to be treated, be courteous, be strong, and remember that you are valued. Your life has meaning. All of you have meaning, especially to me. Every single one of my subscribers, I'm absolutely humbled and proud that you come to this channel and that you enjoy my content. So, in short, yes, I am proud of the person I've grown to be, and I hope to grow even better in the future. Thank you very much, you guys, for your questions. Love you all. Be sure to take care and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for more content coming in the future. We'll see you later.